How can we improve life in our cities? With more and more people across Africa and around the globe moving to urban areas, this question has never been more important. I am Sandra Kahumza Twinobdio right here in Kampala. Welcome to yet another exciting edition of EcoAfrica.
And I am Chris Alems in Lagos, Nigeria. On the show today, we'll look at how we can clean up our cities, making life better for ourselves and our environment. Here's what is coming up. Volunteer divers retrieving trash from Lake Victoria in Uganda. Fighting pollution, the French city that's getting radical about cutting emissions. And protecting sharks, we'll look at conservation efforts in South Africa. When talking about the quality of life in cities, there is perhaps nothing more important than the air we breathe. Conventional cars and trucks are known to pump out emissions that harm both the environment and public health. So activists and experts in Nairobi are gathering hard and fast data on air pollution to empower ordinary citizens to become change makers.
This is the device that could help transform everyday life in Nairobi. A small sensor measuring air pollution in the city center. Mainly to blame for the poor air quality, outdated petrol-fueled motorcycles and diesel-powered minivans known as matatus. For decades, urban planning advocate Humphrey Otieno has called Nairobi home. He works for a joint project between the city government and the UN exploring ways to make Kenya's capital greener. He is particularly concerned about the matatus choking the capital streets.
They are coming from different routes, but all different routes, they all terminate into the city. So they terminate and end in the city, which is not a good thing. So this has brought a lot of pollution into the city.
Street surveys conducted by his organization have found higher incidence rates of bronchitis in places where matatus plied their trade. But anecdotal evidence like this can only go so far. Driving big policy changes on a citywide level will take harder data that Kenya's government does not have yet. This is where Sensors Africa comes in. The organization develops and assembles devices for environmental monitoring and climate action.
African cities and Africa in general does not have data on the air quality levels. And because of that, we have increasing terrible air pollution levels, right? So it's important for us to begin collecting this data to be able to compare it and see whether there's any health impacts.
But sensors are expensive. That is a problem that Alicia Olago's engineering team is working hard to solve.
We call this a low-cost air quality monitor, and the reason being is that it's relatively cheaper compared to the reference grade monitors, which cost tens of thousands of USD.
The casing components are 3D printed, and the team shares the blueprints for their modified design freely online. Citizen scientists anywhere in the world can legally replicate the device without charge, bringing the cost down to under 300 euros. Commercially available reference grade models can cost nearly 100 times as much. The team frequently head out to inspect and maintain the sensors they've installed in different parts of Nairobi. And more city dwellers are requesting the devices. People like Gideon Maura, the shopkeeper, has asked the manager of the restaurant above his premises to host a sensor for him.
So the table is...
the battery is full, so this thing is working perfect.
It's working perfectly.
Yeah.
Most of the time you get our staff are being affected because the chest pain, there's a lot of coughing, Every now and then they must go to hospital for checkup. Now we are able to present the data to the authority so that we can have evidence to be able to improve our life. We have wrote so many letters to the Nairobi County about the noise pollution, about the matatu here, about the smoke, but no action has been taken. So we are hoping through this data collection, maybe we have something to prove to them.
Sensors like these can give a clear picture of air quality in specific locations. But what would help to tackle air pollution in the city? The United Nations Electric Mobility Program advocates for a shift to electric vehicles. Alex Kona says transitioning away from conventional combustion engines needs to be incentivized economically, and that targeting two-wheel transport is a good place to start.
20 years ago there were almost no motorcycles in Kenya. Now we have about 2 million motorcycles, 250,000, 300,000 motorcycles added every year. And if you would electrify them, this has a definite and significant impact on greenhouse gas emission reductions.
Progress is being made. Kenya now boasts an electric motorcycle taxi fleet. And the government has ambitious targets. Within 5 years, 100,000 e-motorbikes are set to roll onto Kenya's streets. So more and more people will be able to hop onto cleaner transport, like urban planning advocate Humphrey Otieno. And who knows, these much needed air pollution sensors might be redundant soon.
We all need to be able to get around every day in a convenient way. But is it realistic for everyone in the city to have their own form of motorized transport?
Providing decent and reliable public transportation is surely the way forward. Let us now head to Europe. A French city is giving residents a big incentive to stop using their cars. And as you will see, the more people rise to the challenge, the greater the benefit.
Monday morning in Montpellier in southern France. The city with its 500,000 inhabitants is waking up, and Rayenne Chabi is on her way to work. Last December, she stopped using her parents' car to make the 7-kilometre journey. Free public transport is a really good idea, especially for people like myself, who think twice before spending €50 on a monthly subscription. I only earn €1,950 gross per month, similar to my sister, who's also switched to public transport. It's only taken me 26 minutes to get here, 10 minutes less than by car. I like this stress-free way of travelling. Plus, I'm protecting the environment. Her travel is financed by a tax paid by companies with at least 11 employees. Such as the one in which Rayenne Chabi works as a manager's personal assistant. Our company used to be in an area with poor access to public transport. That's why we moved to this location, which is only a 3-minute walk away from the tram. For once, the taxes we pay are being used for something beneficial to society. This is a really good measure. The medium-sized company provides easy-to-use, no-code management software for businesses. Operating in an environmentally sustainable way is crucial to them. As a software developer, we only use servers that are exclusively run with renewable energy. We have planted fruit trees on our grounds. We are very careful with the amount of electricity we use for lighting and air conditioning. Last year, we reviewed our carbon footprint. We have reduced plastic usage, but there is still a way to go. Such efforts are to the delight of the socialist-led city government. It threw a big party to celebrate the introduction of free public transport in Montpellier last December. Free public transport gives citizens some of their purchasing power back. It's an ecological and social measure. It helps us fight global warming, but it doesn't punish people, and it gets everyone on board. The fewer cars there are, the cleaner the air we breathe. And the measure seems to be going down well with Montpellier's young inhabitants. As a student, it helps a lot not to have to spend money on transport. This encourages people to save fuel and take public transport instead. Part of this plan is the construction of a new tram line, the 5th in Montpellier. It'll be completed late next year and connect the university Paul Valéry, where more than 20,000 students are signed up. This is the university entrance, and you can see there is very important construction work underway. We'll have 2 tram stops right here, additional bike lanes and some parking for cars, but less than in the past. We're also transforming this square, which was used for parking, into a pedestrian area. The university has created a lot of extra bike parking too. The researcher is hoping this won't only be used by students. 40% of our teaching staff currently come by car. Some might take the tram in the future, now this option exists. A good public transport network is crucial for free public transport to make a difference. But getting around by public transport is not as easy in places further from the centre. Saint-Jean-de-Véda is an adjacent satellite town and part of Montpellier's metropolitan area, with about 12,000 inhabitants and counting. Hugo Dayan works in this suburb but lives in the city centre. He's part of a lobby group calling for the money spent funding free public transport to be invested in extending the network instead. Look, it's about 4 p.m. and there is only one tram every 15 minutes, even though it's going home time. Transport links are so poor that the local town hall has even set up a shuttle bus in one district that you have to pay for. If you want free public transport, you need to consider that the city is growing. Otherwise, you just please people in the city centre with its good transport network and forget those in the outskirts.
Mais oubliez en fait tous les gens qui habitent déjà en périphérie.
The new tram line is also going to run through Saint-Jean-de-Véda. Dayan is hoping it's just the start. If the network is extended, the company CIMAX hopes that even more of its employees will take public transport. The CEO also wants to make her firm even greener. We're going to construct a covered bike shed and install solar panels on our roof so we can become even more sustainable and reduce energy costs now prices have risen significantly. One big step forward has already been achieved. Thanks to the new scheme, transport no longer makes up the lion's share of the company's carbon footprint.
It will be interesting to see if that strategy actually works out and maybe even inspires other cities as well. So now, tell me, how many of you love some coffee? If you do, you're definitely not alone. It is fast becoming the world's most popular beverage. For many of us, grabbing a takeaway coffee is a daily routine. More often than not, it comes in a disposable cup, which ends up in the trash. But not in one Danish city, thanks to a new initiative.
It's like a vending machine in reverse. Reusable coffee cups are not issued here, they're returned. Customers are then refunded a 67 deposit. Denmark's second largest city, Aarhus, introduced the scheme to reduce waste from single-use cups.
And last year we did a cleaning of the river that runs through the city and we picked up 100,000 glasses. So it is an issue, and all this stuff ends out in the nature. We get the microplastic, we get cups all over the place. Saturday morning the city looks like trash. So this will be a significant impact on microplastic, but also the general picture of how the city looks.
25 machines scattered throughout the city centre now take back the custom-made cups for reuse. They're then transported to this cleaning facility. About 40,000 reusable takeaway cups are currently in circulation. Officials say it will take time for the system to pay for itself, but the benefits are worth it. The City Council hopes to scale it up significantly.
Basically, this can be expanded to all kind of takeaway. This can be the pizza box, this can be the box you have your curry in, it can be the beer bottles, it can be pretty much anything that will go into a trash can.
The scheme is set to run for 3 years before undergoing a review. More than 40 cafes and bars have already signed up, building on other return schemes.
We've done it with plastic bottles, and that works superbly. You never see a plastic bottle lying around because people have incentive in taking it and getting whatever amount of money you can get from it. But creating that and creating a new habit for people in terms of to-go cups, I think that's going to be challenging.
But for many, introducing another deposit system is not a problem. On the contrary.
I think that people should get used to that we have to take care and we have to move ourselves to these machines or to the trash bin.
A great plan, and if everyone plays their part, it's sure to be successful. That's also the message of our next report from right here in Uganda. As we know, the world's oceans are choking on plastic, but lakes are even more polluted. Lake Victoria is at serious risk of degrading, partly due to poor waste management. But there are lots of people who are working hard to turn things around.
Once a month, Hassantenyo takes a dive to search for waste. Though visibility underwater is low, he and his colleagues don't have to dive too deep, since plastic floats towards the surface. Lake Victoria, Africa's biggest freshwater lake, is full of trash.
Down there, when I dive down there are some plastics and these fishing nets which are no longer being used by the fishermen.
Hassantenyo lives on the Ugandan shore of Lake Victoria. Though he earns most of his money from boat tours, for almost 3 years now, he's been diving for a local organization that aims to clean up the lake. They pull out abandoned fish nets or ghost nets, which are dangerous for the divers and their project.
There's a day when I entered there down and I was grabbed with a fishing net. Yeah, that's the worst thing I have. I used my knife, which I move with, and I tried to cut all of them.
They not only clean up the water, they also retrieve waste from the shore that's covered in dense vegetation. The 9-man team also gets help from volunteers. Each month, they gather tons of plastic and bring it to land. Faizo Motumba started the initiative. He's been organizing regular cleanups here for 4 years. His program, Uganda Junior Rangers, aims to return the lake to its natural state. The plastic and other waste in Lake Victoria mainly comes from the canals of Uganda's capital, Kampala, especially the Nakivubo Canal. A team of the Junior Rangers works here 3 times a week.
We do watershed protection of the lake. We do the water channels that get it, the lakes that are around the lake, and the coastal areas on the shores of Lake Victoria. Because of it, a small team we have, we are able to collect over 10 tons of plastics within the lake and out of the watershed. But with a bigger team, we can collect as much as 50 tons in the mass and plastic.
The team also tries to convince as many residents as possible to take part in the cleanup on the canal.
So we try to build stewardship and community buy-in in what we are trying to do through these community activities, cleanup activities, and whenever we go in the communities, we engage with the community also, try to get them involved, then educate them about the negative impact it has to their communities and their neighborhood.
Those living near the canal are starting to realize that it's healthier and better for the environment not to throw waste into the water.
If we solve them from this side, we shall make sure that the lake is free and convenient for swimming and for fishing and for all other activities that will take place on the lakes.
So far, not enough people have taken measures to help protect Lake Victoria. Clean water is critical for the survival of those who live on the lake. Hassantenyo comes from a family of fishers and knows firsthand how important this is.
I don't earn a lot from diving, but the way I love this job, I just work so that I can help other people's life.
He and his group want to continue their project. They will continue educating young people in the process, which will allow their diving team to keep growing.
And now for a story from South Africa that might require a change of thinking. Sharks are often vilified and feared, but they actually play a key role in the ocean ecosystem.
That's right, Sandra. South Africa's long coastline is home to hundreds of shark species. The country has been a trailblazer when it comes to studying and protecting these endangered creatures. In our next report, we'll take a deep dive into the topic of shark conservation.
Migrating blue sharks are frequent visitors to the coast of South Africa. Puff-adder shy sharks and gully sharks are native to its kelp forest. These brown seaweeds are home to more than 200 shark species. Shark expert Ryan Daly regularly monitors their activities.
To conserve sharks, we need to know where they go, where they spend time. So we are tagging these sharks to figure out where they go and identify critical habitat for them so that we can improve protection for these critical areas.
He and his team fit the sharks with acoustic transmitters so they can track them, a procedure the sharks barely notice.
Okay, scalpel.
Once they've been tagged, the transmitter emits an ultrasonic pulse for 6 years.
In the last couple of years, we've tagged over 100 sharks, representing about 10 or 12 different species. Many of these sharks are endangered, and we hope to find out more about where they go. Specifically, over multiple years, we hope to identify critical areas for them.
Over 150 receivers are moored along the seabed to detect the signals from the tagged sharks. Whenever one of them swims by, the receiver records its ID number. The signal ranges up to 1 kilometer. The acoustic receivers are regularly brought onto dry land, so the data they've logged can be evaluated.
We have to work with a big network of collaborators to share data on their receivers. So all of the data we collect on these receivers gets shared within a network, and then we're able to figure out where these sharks have been, where they're spending their time, so that we can prioritize their conservation.
The program can only work so long as there's broad support for shark conservation efforts. From an early age, humans are afraid of these ocean predators. Shark populations can only survive if public attitudes to them change, and that requires raising awareness.
By changing the mindsets, I believe that I am changing the world one step at a time or one kid at a time. For me, if I have a group of 40 learners and I'm changing the mindset of one child, even if it's going to their families and teaching them why sharks are important, we're already making such a big difference.
The media tends to report on sharks mainly when there have been attacks on humans. At the Shark Education Centre in Cape Town, children can learn about the valuable role they play in marine ecosystems and get up close with shark eggs and even teeth.
This actually changed my perspective on how they actually live and that they're not actually a danger to us, that we actually endanger them by polluting and by catching.
Conservationists have also equipped an underwater camera with bait, so they can also observe smaller, shyer sharks that lurk in the kelp forest off the coastline. It lures them out of hiding, allowing the researchers to gain useful insights into ocean biodiversity. The collected data is analyzed using a program the team developed to help them assess their findings.
We've taken some open source machine learning software and trained it on hundreds of images of sharks and fish and all of the species that we come across here in False Bay, so that we can use it for detecting
these species in videos in the future.
Their research has already proved highly constructive. There's already more public acceptance of shark conservation, and conservation areas now make up 5% of South Africa's oceans. Environmentalists would like to see that area increase further in order to protect marine ecosystems.
What majestic creatures! And that brings us to the end of today's show. Great to have you along. I'm Chris Alems in Lagos. See you next time.
Bye, Chris, and to all of you. If you've got any idea about how we can all look after our environment, do get in touch. We love to hear from you. And don't forget to check us out on all our social media platforms too. I am Sandra Kahumza Twinodio, signing off from Kampala, right here in Uganda.